Welcome back to the Global Ledger. I'm Justin. This is episode 50, and today we're not going to introduce any new concepts. We're not going to react to any market news or chase any kind of headlines in this episode. Today, I thought we should do something a lot more important, and that is putting everything we have learned in the past 49 episodes and bringing it all in to how we think. Okay, so over the last 49 episodes, we've talked about liquidity, money creation, banks and shadow banks, repo, collateral, dealer balance sheets, central banks, risk premiums, discount rates, valuation, so on and so forth. But all that knowledge only matters if it changes how you think. So today's question we're going to try to answer is simple. How do we actually use all of this? Let's get into it. So I've broken this down into a couple parts. And this is going to be a little less formal, a little bit more relaxed episode, along with the next episode we do. But part one, I kind of frame this in basically, we're going to start with why valuation often feels unsatisfying. And this is for anybody and everybody who's studied finance. You've probably learned valuation the right way. Okay, discounted cash flows, cost of capital, risk-free rate plus a premium, growth assumptions, terminal values, right? And none of that is wrong at all. But if you spent time in real markets, you've probably noticed something unsettling. Markets move when fundamentals haven't changed, before earnings do, before data is released, and sometimes in ways that feel disconnected from that logic. Great earnings, stocks are down. Bad earnings, stocks are up. No news, and then huge moves, right? So people reach for explanations, sentiment, blame sentiment, psychology, narratives, politics, or just the market is irrational, right? But what if the problem isn't irrationality? What if the problem is that valuation is being taught without money? So that's part one. Okay, part two, we're going to talk about this missing piece. And the missing piece, I think, is money is funding. And the key idea that runs through really this entire podcast is markets are not priced by opinions. They are priced by balance sheets. Assets are held by someone out there, right? That someone must fund the position. And funding is never free. It's never infinite. And it's definitely never guaranteed. So funding is really the medium of exchange in a way. And money isn't just a medium of exchange. And markets function only as long as funding flows. Dealers don't just quote prices. They warehouse risk, they hedge positions, they borrow and repo, they manage collateral, they intermediate between buyers and sellers. So when their balance sheets are healthy, markets feel liquid. But when their balance sheets are constrained, markets feel fragile. So the pivot's kind of this. Valuation is not just about expected cash flows. It's about who can fund risk at a given moment. Okay, so I want to bracket this. So that's part two. Okay, let's think about money as funding. All right. In part one, we talked about why valuation feels kind of unsatisfying sometimes, right? So, part three, what the discount rate really is. Okay. So in traditional finance, the discount rate is treated like an input. Pick a risk-free rate, add a risk premium, discount the cash flows. But in reality, the discount rate is not an input. It's an output. It comes after funding conditions, after liquidity, after margin, leverage, and balance sheet capacity. Think about it this way. When funding is cheap, leverage is easy, risk is absorbed, volatility is dampened, right? Required returns start to fall. But when funding is tight, leverage disappears, risk is shunned, and required returns rise. This is the same asset, the same cash flows, just different price, right? So that difference is the discount rate moving, not because opinions changed, but because funding conditions changed. So those three parts lead us up to a layered system that I've put together, more of a money-aware valuation framework. And I want to put this together into something usable. And here's the framework I want you to walk away with. Okay, this isn't a formula, it's a way of thinking. Layer 1, cash flows. Okay, this is clearly traditional valuation, business model, revenue, margins, growth, durability. None of this goes away. But bad businesses don't become good businesses just because liquidity is abundant, right? But which brings me into layer 2, which is financial valuation. This is where I think most finance education stops, which is risk-free rate, credit spreads, equity risk premium, cost of capital. These numbers matter, but they are downstream variables. They respond to something deeper. So that's layer 2. Layer 3, okay? This is the missing layer, and this is funding conditions. Okay, we have to ask ourselves, why are positions funded? What does repo look like? What is happening till collateral haircuts? Are dealers expanding or shrinking balance sheets? Is dollar liquidity abundant or scarce? Are hedging costs rising or falling? This layer explains when valuation multiples expand or compress. So that's layer 3. Layer 4, the liquidity regime. Okay, so we're going to zoom out a little further. Is the system in a liquidity expansion or a liquidity contraction? This ties into what's going on at the Fed. And this is where a lot of people tend to get just not lost, but they tend to just take what they have and go. These are the questions where you ask, what is the central bank doing? What is the Treasury issuing? What is happening in global dollar markets? Are balance sheets being encouraged or are they being punished? This layer explains cycles. So that's the 4th layer. And very important one I think that's missing. Okay, so the kind of money-aware valuation framework here. Layer 1, cash flows. Layer 2, financial valuation. Layer 3, funding conditions. Layer 4, the liquidity regime. Okay? So that's part 4. I wanted to lay that framework out. Part 5, this is where valuation is regime dependent, okay? So once you see all 4 layers, something will start to click. Valuation is not a single number. It's a conditional outcome. So the same company can be cheap in a tightening regime, expensive in an easing regime, and fairly valued in both, depending on funding conditions. This is why valuations stretch late in cycles. Multiples compress violently in crisis, and cheap assets can get cheaper. It's not craziness or madness. This is all that we're talking about balance sheets again. So valuation, and I'm going to move on to part 6 now. Okay. because there's some synthesis happening between looking at money markets, funding, and looking at capital markets, and looking at valuation and assets. Valuation is about expected cash flows and required returns. But required returns are shaped by money, funding, and balance sheets. So you put that together, valuation is finance sitting on top of a monetary system. Ignore money, and a valuation feels kind of theoretical. Ignore valuation, and money feels abstract. So together, I think, my opinion, they explain markets. So I wanted to do this because I want us to get use out of what we're talking about here and be able to practice this and not just, roll around with theory and really put this to use in our minds as we think about the monetary system and we think about the capital markets and the financial markets together. So I think a framework like this can help us not maybe feel like markets are so random. Markets, of course, if somebody out there had the magic formula and the magic, theory and way of thinking, there'd be somebody that would be quite popular that we'd probably know about. And I'm not saying that this is not in any way a perfect framework, and it could absolutely change as I learn more. But this is where I'm at now, and this is what I think. This is my best foot forward, putting all this together for you guys. And so I think this is a predictable way and an understandable way to have this antidote to fear that's out there in the markets and in the monetary system. So let's close this where we began. Okay, so money is not just something we spend. Okay, it's something markets really run on. Finance is not just a bunch of math and stats, right? It's math sitting on top of funding. Okay, so valuation is not just about the future. Okay, it's about the present conditions under which risk can be held. So I want to thank you for listening to episode 50 of the Global Ledger. In the next episode, I'm going to lay out, this will be kind of an intermission of what to expect next over the next 50 episodes. I hope you'll find interest in it. I know I do. So once again, I'm Justin, and thanks for being here.